The rain was falling hard that night. It hit the windows like angry little fists. I stood outside the mansion with nothing but a small bag in my hand. My clothes were getting soaked. My tears mixed with the raindrops on my face. Through the window, I could see them. My husband, Derek, was holding another woman's hand. Her name was Vanessa. She had a round belly that showed she was going to have a baby. His baby. Derek saw me looking through the window. Do you know what he did? He smiled. Then he closed the curtains. I had been married to this man for 15 years. 15 years of cooking his meals. 15 years of washing his clothes. 15 years of loving him with my whole heart. And now he was throwing me away like I was nothing. You have 1 hour to leave, he had said to me earlier that evening. Vanessa is moving in tonight. This is her home now. But Derek, I had cried, this is my home too. Where will I go? He had laughed in my face. That's not my problem, Clara. You should have thought about that before you got old and boring. Old and boring. I was only 42 years old, and the only reason I was tired all the time was because I worked so hard to make our house feel like a home. What Derek didn't know, what nobody knew, was that this mansion he was so proud of, this beautiful estate worth $500 million, actually belonged to me. I had inherited it from my grandmother 3 months ago. I just hadn't told anyone yet, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I ended up standing in the rain, watching my husband of 15 years choose another woman over me. Before we continue, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you want to find out what happens next, make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter of this incredible story. Now let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Clara Johnson. I grew up in a small town in Georgia with my grandmother, Mama Rose. My parents died in a car accident when I was just 5 years old. Mama Rose was all I had in this world. We didn't have much money. Our little house had cracks in the walls, and the roof leaked when it rained. But Mama Rose made sure I always had food to eat and love in my heart. She taught me that being kind was more important than being rich. Clara, baby, she would say to me, money comes and goes, but a good heart is worth more than all the gold in the world. I believed her. I still believe her. When I was 27 years old, I met Derek Thompson at a church picnic. He was tall and handsome with a smile that could light up a room. He was working as a car salesman back then. He didn't have much, but he had dreams. One day, I'm going to be somebody, he told me on our first date. I'm going to have a big house and nice cars, and everyone will respect me. I didn't care about any of that. I just liked how he made me laugh. I liked how he brought me flowers every Sunday. I liked how he held my hand when we walked together. We got married after dating for only 6 months. Mama Rose wasn't sure about him. She said she saw something in his eyes that worried her. But I was young and in love. I didn't listen. For the first few years, things were good. Derek worked hard at the car dealership, and I worked as a teacher at the elementary school. We saved every penny we could. We dreamed together about our future. Then Derek started his own business. He opened a small company that sold car parts. At first, it was very hard. There were many nights when we didn't know if we could pay our bills, but I stood by him. I believed in him. Don't give up, I would tell him when he wanted to quit. You can do this, Derek. I believe in you. Slowly, the business grew. Year after year, it got bigger and bigger. After 10 years, Derek's company was worth millions of dollars. We moved from our small apartment into a beautiful house. Derek bought fancy cars. He wore expensive suits, but something changed in him. The more money he made, the more he changed. The Derek who used to bring me flowers every Sunday was gone. The Derek who used to hold my hand was gone. In his place was a man who cared only about money and power. He started coming home late at night. He stopped eating dinner with me. When I tried to talk to him, he would just wave his hand and tell me he was too busy. Clara, I don't have time for this, he would say. I have important business to handle. You wouldn't understand. I tried to be patient. I remembered what Mama Rose taught me about kindness and understanding. I told myself that Derek was just stressed from work. I told myself that the man I married was still in there somewhere. One night I decided to surprise Derek at his office. I made his favorite meal, fried chicken with collard greens and cornbread. I put on my nicest dress. I wanted to remind him of the old days when we were young and in love. But when I got to his office, the door was locked. I could hear voices inside, laughing voices. I knocked on the door. "Who is it?" Derek called out. He sounded annoyed. "It's me, honey. I brought you dinner." There was silence. Then I heard whispers. Finally, Derek opened the door. His tie was loose and his shirt was wrinkled. "Clara, what are you doing here?" he asked. He didn't sound happy to see me. "I wanted to surprise you," I said with a smile. But then I saw her. Behind Derek, sitting on his office couch, was a young woman. She was maybe 25 years old. She was very beautiful with long braids and big brown eyes. She was fixing her lipstick. "Who is that?" I asked. My voice was shaking. Derek stepped outside and closed the door behind him. "That's Vanessa. She's my new secretary." "Your secretary?" I repeated. Something felt wrong, very wrong. "Yes, Clara, my secretary. Now please go home. I have work to do." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that Vanessa was just his secretary. But deep in my heart, I knew the truth. I just wasn't ready to face it. That night, I went home and cried myself to sleep. I didn't tell anyone what I saw. I felt ashamed. I felt like maybe it was my fault. Maybe if I was younger, prettier, more interesting, Derek would still love me. But that was just the beginning of my troubles. 3 weeks after that night at the office, I got a phone call that would change my life forever. It was from a lawyer named Mr. Gerald Patterson. He said he needed to speak with me about my grandmother. "Is Mama Rose okay?" I asked. Fear grabbed my heart. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Thompson," Mr. Patterson said. "Your grandmother passed away peacefully in her sleep last night." The phone fell from my hand. My whole world went dark. Mama Rose was gone. The only person who had ever truly loved me was gone. The woman who raised me, who taught me everything I knew about being a good person, was gone. I flew to Georgia for the funeral. Derek said he was too busy to come with me. He said he had important meetings. I went alone. The funeral was small. Mama Rose didn't have many friends left. Most of them had passed away over the years. I sat in the front row of the little church and cried until I had no more tears left. After the service, Mr. Patterson asked me to come to his office. He said Mama Rose had left something for me in her will. "Your grandmother was a very interesting woman, Mrs. Thompson," he said as we sat down in his office. "Did she ever tell you about her past?" I shook my head. She never talked much about her life before I was born. She just said she came from a small village in Mississippi. Mr. Patterson smiled. "Well, there's something you need to know. Your grandmother's real name was Rose Eleanor Chambers. She was the daughter of Elijah Chambers, one of the first black millionaires in the South." I stared at him. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Your grandmother ran away from home when she was 18, Mr. Patterson continued. "She didn't agree with how her family treated the workers on their estate. She wanted to live a simple life. She changed her name and never looked back." "But what does this have to do with me?" I asked. Mr. Patterson slid a folder across the desk. "Your grandmother inherited the Chambers estate when her father died. She never sold it. She kept it hidden all these years. And now, Mrs. Thompson, she has left it all to you." I opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were pictures of a massive mansion surrounded by beautiful gardens. There were papers with numbers that made my head spin. "The estate is worth approximately $500 million, Mr. Patterson said. You are now one of the wealthiest women in the country." I sat there in shock. $500 million. Dollars. An estate that looked like a palace, and it was all mine. "There's one condition," Mr. Patterson added. "Your grandmother wrote a letter explaining everything. She wanted you to read it before you decide what to do with the inheritance." He handed me a sealed envelope. On the front, in Mama Rose's beautiful handwriting, was my name, Clara. I took the envelope but didn't open it. My mind was spinning. I needed time to think. "Can I have a few days?" I asked. "This is a lot to take in." "Of course," Mr. Patterson said. "Take all the time you need. Just know that until you claim the estate officially, no one else knows about your inheritance. Your grandmother made sure of that." I flew back home to Derek in a daze. I still hadn't opened Mama Rose's letter. I wasn't ready. When I got home, I wanted to tell Derek everything. I wanted to share this incredible news with my husband. But when I walked through the front door, something stopped me. Derek was on the phone. He didn't see me come in. He was laughing and talking softly, too softly. "I can't wait to see you tonight, baby," he was saying. "Clara won't suspect a thing. She's too stupid to figure it out." I felt like someone had stabbed me in the heart. Stupid. My husband thought I was stupid. I tiptoed back outside and sat in my car. Tears rolled down my face. In that moment, I made a decision. I would not tell Derek about my inheritance. Not yet. I needed to find out the truth about him first. For the next 2 months, I watched and waited. I pretended everything was normal. I smiled and cooked dinner and acted like the perfect wife. But inside, I was paying attention to everything. And what I discovered broke my heart into a million pieces. The affair with Vanessa had been going on for 2 years. 2 whole years my husband had been sneaking behind my back. They went to restaurants where Derek and I used to eat together. They stayed at hotels on weekends when Derek told me he was on business trips. But the worst discovery came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was cleaning the house when I found a receipt in Derek's jacket pocket. It was for a diamond ring, an engagement ring. My blood ran cold. Derek was planning to marry Vanessa, but we were still married. What was he planning to do? I got my answer 3 days later. Derek came home from work early. He had a strange look on his face. He sat me down in the living room and took a deep breath. "Clara," he said, "I want a divorce." I had been expecting this, but hearing the words still hurt. "Why, Bash?" I asked quietly. Derek didn't look at me. "I've met someone else. Her name is Vanessa. She's pregnant with my child. I want to marry her." Pregnant. Vanessa was pregnant with Derek's baby. This was the final blow. "What about our life together?" I asked. 15 years, Derek. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" Derek stood up and walked to the window. "Things change, Clara. People change. I've outgrown this marriage. I need someone who matches who I am now. Someone younger, someone more beautiful, someone who wasn't me." "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked. "This is my home." Derek turned to look at me, and the coldness in his eyes took my breath away. "Actually, Clara, this is my home. I paid for everything with my money, my business, my success, my house. You contributed nothing. Nothing. After 15 years of supporting him, believing in him, and loving him, I had contributed nothing." "You have 1 week to pack your things and leave," Derek continued. "Vanessa will be moving in next weekend." I sat there in shock, and I couldn't believe this was happening. The man I had loved for 15 years was throwing me away like garbage. Little did Derek know he was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. Because the house we were sitting in, the beautiful mansion he was so proud of, was actually on land that belonged to the Chambers estate, my estate. Derek wasn't just kicking me out of our home. He was kicking me out of my own property. But I didn't tell him that. Not yet. Instead, I nodded quietly and went upstairs to pack my bags. I had 1 week to figure out what to do next. 1 week to decide how to handle this betrayal. On my last night in the house, Vanessa came over for dinner. Derek wanted me to meet her. He said he wanted us all to be civilized about this. I cooked dinner for them. I set the table with the fancy dishes we got for our wedding, and I watched as Vanessa sat in my chair, ate from my plates, and held my husband's hand. "This house is beautiful," Vanessa said, looking around. "I'm going to change a few things, though. The decor is a bit old-fashioned." Derek laughed. "You can do whatever you want, baby. This is your home now." "Your home." The words echoed in my head. After dinner, Derek walked me to the door. It was raining hard outside. Thunder rumbled in the distance. "Take care of yourself, Clara," he said, but he didn't sound like he meant it. I stepped outside into the rain, and that's how I ended up standing there, soaking wet, watching my husband and his pregnant mistress through the window. But as I stood there in the rain, something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a text message from Mr. Patterson, the lawyer. "Mrs. Thompson, I've completed the full review of the estate. There's something very important you need to know. The property your husband's house sits on, all 50 acres of it, is part of the original Chambers estate. Your grandmother bought that land 60 years ago under a different name. Your husband has been living on your property this entire time." I read the message twice. Then I started to laugh. Not a happy laugh, a laugh of pure disbelief. Derek thought he was kicking me out of his home, but he was actually kicking me out of my home, a home that he would have to leave the moment I claimed my inheritance. The tables were about to turn, but I needed to be smart about this. I needed a plan. I wiped the rain from my face and walked to my car. Tomorrow, I would start my new life, but it wouldn't be the sanidad, lonely life Derek expected for me. Oh no, it was going to be something much, much different. As I drove away, I saw something in my rear-view mirror that made my heart skip a beat. Another car was parked across the street from the mansion. Inside the car, I could see someone watching the house. Who was it? And what did they want? I didn't know it yet, but the secrets surrounding the Chambers estate were far deeper and darker than anyone could imagine. And I was about to find myself in the middle of it all. The car in my rearview mirror started to follow me. Its headlights cut through the rain like two angry eyes. My heart began to beat faster and faster. I turned left. The car turned left. I turned right. The car turned right. Someone was definitely following me. But who? And why? I gripped the steering wheel tighter and tried to stay calm. Mama Rose had always taught me that panic never solved anything. "When trouble comes knocking, Clara," she used to say, "you take a deep breath and think with your head, not your fear." I took a deep breath. I needed to get somewhere safe. I couldn't go back to the mansion. Derek had made it clear I wasn't welcome there anymore. I couldn't go to a hotel because the mysterious car would follow me there too. Then I remembered my best friend Tanya. She lived on the other side of town. She had always told me her door was open whenever I needed her. I drove faster through the rainy streets. The mysterious car stayed behind me, never getting too close, never falling too far behind. It was like a shadow I couldn't shake off. After 20 minutes of driving, I finally pulled into Tanya's driveway. Her house was small but cozy, with a yellow door and flower pots on the porch. The lights were on inside. She was home. I looked in my rearview mirror. The mysterious car had stopped at the end of the street. It just sat there watching. I jumped out of my car and ran to Tanya's door. I knocked hard, not caring that I was soaking wet and probably looked like a crazy person. The door swung open. Tanya stood there in her pajamas, her eyes wide with surprise. "Clara, what in the world? Come in, come in." She pulled me inside and closed the door. I was shaking, and not just from the cold. "Girl, what happened to you?" Tanya asked, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I told her everything. I told her about Derek and Vanessa. I told her about getting kicked out of my own home. I told her about the mysterious car that followed me, but I didn't tell her about the inheritance. Not yet. Something told me to keep that secret a little longer. Tanya listened with her mouth open. She had known Derek for years. She had been at our wedding. She had watched him change from a kind young man into someone cold and selfish. I always knew that man wasn't right, Tanya said, shaking her head. The way he started treating you these past few years, like you were his maid instead of his wife. I should have said something sooner. It's not your fault, I said. I didn't want to see the truth. I kept hoping he would change back into the man I married. Tanya handed me a cup of hot tea. Some people show you who they really are when they get power and money. It just brings out what was always hiding inside them. I thought about her words. Was Derek always like this? Was the cruelty always hiding inside him, just waiting for the right moment to come out? What are you going to do now? Tanya asked. I don't know, I admitted. I have nowhere to go. Derek made sure the divorce papers say I get almost nothing. He had me sign something years ago that I didn't really understand. He said it was just business paperwork. Tanya's eyes grew angry. That's Snake. He planned this from the beginning, didn't he? He used you to build his empire, and now he's throwing you away. She wasn't wrong. Derek had been planning this for a long time. But what he didn't plan for was my grandmother's secret inheritance. That night I slept in Tanya's spare bedroom, but I couldn't really sleep. My mind kept spinning with questions. Who was in that car? Why were they following me? And what should I do about my inheritance? I pulled out my phone and looked at the pictures in the folder Mr. Patterson had given me. The Chambers estate was absolutely beautiful. It had a main house with 30 bedrooms, a guest house, a swimming pool that looked like a lake, and gardens that seemed to go on forever. And it was all mine. But with great wealth comes great problems. I was starting to understand that now. The next morning, the rain had stopped. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Tanya's spare bedroom. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then everything came rushing back. Derek, Vanessa, the baby, being kicked out, the mysterious car. I got up and peeked through the curtains. My heart jumped. The car from last night was gone. But in its place was a black SUV parked across the street. Someone new was watching the house. Tanya, I called out. She came running from the kitchen. What's wrong? Look outside. There's another car watching your house. Tanya looked through the curtains. Her face went pale. Clara, that's not just any car. That's an expensive car. Whoever is following you has money. This made me even more worried. Rich people following me could only mean one thing. Someone else knew about the Chambers estate. Someone else wanted it. My phone rang. It was Mr. Patterson. Mrs. Thompson, we need to talk. Can you come to my office today? There have been some developments. What kind of developments? I asked. Mr. Patterson paused. It's better if we discuss this in person. And Mrs. Thompson, be careful who you trust. The Chambers fortune has attracted attention from people who will do anything to get their hands on it. After I hung up, I knew I had to tell Tanya something. I couldn't keep her in the dark anymore, especially if she was in danger because of me. Tanya, there's something I need to tell you. Something big. We sat down at her kitchen table. I told her about Mama Rose's secret past. I told her about the Chambers estate. I told her about the $500 million. Tanya stared at me like I had grown a second head. $500 million? She whispered. Clara, are you sure this is real? I have all the papers. It's real, Tanya. I'm a millionaire. Actually, I'm much more than a millionaire. Tanya grabbed my hands. Do you know what this means? You're not the poor, kicked-out wife Derek thinks you are. You're richer than he could ever dream of being. I know, I said, but that's not what I care about. Something strange is going on. Someone is following me. Someone knows about the inheritance, And I think Mama Rose had secrets she never told me. I took out the letter Mama Rose had left me. I still hadn't opened it. Something had been holding me back. Maybe I was afraid of what I would find inside. "Are you going to read it?" Tanya asked. I looked at the envelope. My name was written in Mama Rose's handwriting. Seeing her writing made my heart ache. I missed her so much. "Not yet," I said. "First, I need to go see Mr. Patterson. I need to understand what I'm dealing with." Tanya insisted on driving me to the lawyer's office. She said she wasn't going to let me face this alone. That's the kind of friend Tanya was, loyal to the bone. We drove carefully, watching for anyone following us. The black SUV was gone from outside Tanya's house, but I had a feeling we were still being watched. Mr. Patterson's office was in a tall building downtown. His secretary led us to a conference room with big windows overlooking the city. Mr. Patterson was waiting for us with a worried look on his face. "Mrs. Thompson, thank you for coming. Please sit down." We sat down. Tanya held my hand for support. "I've spent the last few weeks going through all the documents related to the Chambers estate," Mr. Patterson began. "What I found is quite troubling." "Troubling how?" I asked. Mr. Patterson opened a thick folder. "Your grandmother, Rose Eleanor Chambers, had a brother named William Chambers. He died about 10 years ago, but before he died, he had 3 children." "I have cousins?" I asked. I had no idea. Mama Rose never talked about any family. "Yes, their names are Malcolm, Desiree, and Jerome Chambers, and they believe the estate should belong to them, not you." My stomach dropped. "But Mama Rose left it to me. It's in her will." "That's correct. The will is very clear, but your cousins are not happy about it. They've hired lawyers to contest the will. They claim your grandmother was not of sound mind when she wrote it." "That's ridiculous," I said. "Mama Rose was the smartest person I ever knew. Her mind was sharp as a knife." "I believe you," Mr. Patterson said, "but proving it in court might be difficult. Your cousins have resources. They've been living off a trust fund from the Chambers family for years. They expected to inherit the entire estate when your grandmother passed. They were shocked to learn she left everything to you." Tanya squeezed my hand. "So what does this mean? Are they going to take Clara's inheritance?" "They can try, but as long as Mrs. Thompson claims the estate and fights back, she has a very strong case. The will is clear and properly executed. The problem is your cousins might not wait for the courts to decide." "What do you mean?" I asked. Mr. Patterson looked uncomfortable. "Malcolm Chambers has a reputation for getting what he wants by any means necessary. He's been involved in some questionable business deals over the years. Nothing proven, but there are rumors." I thought about the mysterious cars following me. "Do you think my cousins are the ones having me followed?" "It's possible. They might be trying to intimidate you into giving up your claim, or they might be looking for information they can use against you." I felt anger rising in my chest. I had just lost my grandmother and my marriage. Now I had cousins I never knew about trying to steal my inheritance. It seemed like everyone wanted to take something from me. But Mama Rose didn't raise me to be a pushover. She raised me to stand up for what was right. "I'm not giving up," I said. "That estate is mine. Mama Rose wanted me to have it. I'm going to fight for it." Mr. Patterson smiled for the first time since we arrived. "I was hoping you would say that. I prepared all the documents you need to officially claim the estate. Once you sign these papers, you will be the legal owner of the Chambers property." He slid a stack of papers across the table. My hands were shaking as I picked up the pen. This was it, the moment that would change everything. I signed my name on every line. Clara Johnson Thompson. Each signature felt like a sail into a new world, a world I didn't fully understand yet. "Congratulations, Mrs. Thompson," Mr. Patterson said. "You are now the owner of the Chambers estate." I didn't feel like celebrating. I felt scared and overwhelmed. But I also felt something else. I felt hope. For the first time since Derek kicked me out, I felt like maybe everything was going to be okay. What happens now? I asked. Now you can visit the estate whenever you want. It's been maintained by a caretaker all these years. Everything is ready for you. Also, I need to inform your husband's mortgage company about the land situation. I had almost forgotten about that part. Derek's mansion was built on land that belonged to me. What will happen to Derek's house? I asked. Well, his house is on your property. He's been paying property taxes to the wrong entity for years. Technically, he's been trespassing on your land. You have the legal right to evict him. Evict him. Derek Thompson, the man who kicked me out in the rain, could be evicted from his own home by me. For a moment, I imagined the look on his face when he found out. The shock, the disbelief, the anger. It would almost be worth everything I had been through. But then I thought about what Mama Rose would want. She didn't raise me to be petty or vengeful. She raised me to be kind and fair. I don't want to evict him right away, I said. I need time to think about what to do. Mr. Patterson nodded. That's your decision to make. But I would advise you to be careful. Your husband doesn't seem like the type of man who takes bad news well. That was an understatement. Derek had a terrible temper. When things didn't go his way, he could become very mean very quickly. One more thing, Mr. Patterson said. Your grandmother's letter, have you read it yet? I shook my head. I've been waiting. I'm not sure why. When you're ready, I think you should read it. Your grandmother had many secrets. I believe that letter will explain a lot. After we left the lawyer's office, Tanya and I went to a small cafe to talk. My head was spinning with everything I had learned. Girl, you're a millionaire, Tanya said, still not quite believing it. $500 million. That's more money than I can even imagine. It doesn't feel real, I admitted. This morning I woke up thinking I had nothing. Now I have more than I ever dreamed of. What are you going to do about Derek? Tanya asked. I stirred my coffee slowly. I don't know yet. Part of me wants to show up at that house and tell him exactly who owns it. Part of me wants to watch him find out on his own. And the cousins, the ones who want to steal your inheritance? I'll deal with them when I have to. Right now, I just want to see the estate. I want to see what Mama Rose left me. Tanya grinned. Can I come with you? I have to see this mansion with my own eyes. I laughed for the first time in days. Of course you can come. I need all the support I can get. We decided to drive to the Chambers estate the next day. It was about 2 hours outside the city, deep in the countryside. Mr. Patterson had given me the address and the gate code. That night, I stayed at Tanya's house again. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. My life had changed so much in such a short time. Just weeks ago, I thought I was a happily married woman. Now I was divorced, homeless, and the owner of a $500 million estate. I thought about Derek sleeping in that big house with Vanessa. He was probably so proud of himself. He probably thought he had won. He had no idea what was coming. But I also thought about Mama Rose. Why had she kept so many secrets? Why didn't she tell me about her family? Why didn't she tell me about the estate? I took out the envelope with her letter. My fingers traced the edges. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I would read it. I finally fell asleep around midnight. But my sleep was filled with strange dreams. I dreamed of a big mansion surrounded by fire. I dreamed of shadowy figures chasing me through long hallways. I dreamed of Mama Rose's voice calling my name from somewhere far away. I woke up suddenly at 3 in the morning. Something had made a noise outside. I crept to the window and peeked through the curtains. The black SUV was back, and this time someone was getting out of it. It was a tall man in a dark coat. He stood on the sidewalk staring up at the house. Even from this distance, I could see his face. He looked just like Mama Rose. This had to be one of my cousins. Malcolm, Desiree, or Jerome. One of them had found me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He made a call. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could tell he was angry. He gestured wildly as he talked, pointing at the house several times. After a few minutes, he hung up the phone. He looked up at the window where I was hiding. For a terrifying moment, I thought he could see me, but then he turned and got back into his SUV. Before he drove away, he did something that made my blood run cold. He took a picture of Tanya's house. They knew where I was staying. They knew who my friend was. And I had a terrible feeling that things were about to get much more dangerous. I had to get to the Chambers estate as soon as possible. I had to find out what I was really dealing with. I didn't sleep again that night. I just sat by the window, watching and waiting for the sun to rise. When morning finally came, I woke Tanya up and told her what I had seen. We need to leave now, I said. Before they come back. Tanya didn't ask questions. She trusted me completely. Within 30 minutes, we were in her car, driving out of the city toward the Chambers estate. The drive was tense. I kept checking the mirrors for anyone following us, but the road behind us was empty. After about an hour, we turned onto a small country road. The trees grew thicker. The houses became fewer and further apart. It felt like we were entering another world. Then I saw it. The gate to the Chambers estate was enormous. It was made of black iron with the letter C in the center. Beyond the gate, a long driveway disappeared into a forest of oak trees. I entered the code Mr. Patterson had given me. The gate slowly swung open. Tanya gasped, "Clara, this is like something out of a movie." We drove down the driveway for what felt like forever. Oak trees lined both sides, their branches meeting overhead to create a tunnel of green leaves. And then the mansion came into view. It was even more beautiful than the pictures. It had white columns and tall windows and a grand entrance with steps that seemed to go up forever. The gardens around it were perfectly maintained, filled with flowers of every color. "This is yours," Tanya whispered. "All of this is yours." I couldn't speak. I just stared at the home my grandmother had left me, the home she had run away from so many years ago, the home that held secrets I was only beginning to uncover. We parked in front of the mansion and got out of the car. An older man was walking toward us from the house. He had gray hair and kind eyes. "Mrs. Thompson?" he asked. "I'm Henry, the caretaker. Mr. Patterson told me you would be coming." I shook his hand. "It's nice to meet you, Henry. Thank you for taking care of this place." "It's been my honor," Henry said. "I've been working here for 40 years. Your grandmother hired me herself. She was a wonderful woman." Tears filled my eyes. "You knew her?" "Very well. She came to visit twice a year, every year. She walked through the gardens and sat in her father's old study. She always said she would come back for good someday. I'm just sorry she never got the chance." Henry led us inside the mansion. The entrance hall had a ceiling so high I could barely see the top. A crystal chandelier hung in the center, sparkling like 1,000 diamonds. "Let me show you around," Henry said. We spent the next 2 hours walking through the mansion. There were so many rooms I lost count. Bedrooms, sitting rooms, a library filled with thousands of books, a ballroom with mirrors on every wall. But it was the last room Henry showed us that took my breath away. "This was your grandmother's private study," he said, opening a door at the end of a long hallway. "She asked me to keep it locked until you came." The room was small compared to the others, but it was filled with photographs and papers and memories. On the desk was an old photo of a young woman who looked exactly like me. "That's your grandmother when she was about your age," Henry said. I picked up the photo and stared at it. Mama Rose and I could have been twins. I had never noticed how much we looked alike. "She left something for you," Henry said. He walked to a safe in the corner of the room and opened it. Inside was a wooden box carved with beautiful designs. "She said you would know what to do with it when the time was right." I took the box with trembling hands. It was heavier than I expected. I opened it slowly. Inside was a stack of old letters, a golden key, and another envelope with my name on it. But there was something else too, something that made my heart stop. It was a photograph of four people standing in front of the mansion. One of them was Mama Rose as a young woman. Standing next to her was a young man who looked just like the man I saw outside Tanya's house last night. And in the corner of the photo, written in faded ink, were the words, "The truth must never come out, 1962. What truth? What had my grandmother been hiding in all these years? I looked up at Henry. His face had gone pale. "Mrs. Thompson," he said quietly, "there's something I need to tell you. Something your grandmother made me promise to keep secret until you found this box." He took a deep breath. "Your grandmother didn't just run away from this family. She ran away because she witnessed something terrible. Something that happened right here in this mansion. Something that people have killed to keep hidden." Before he could say another word, we heard the sound of tires on the driveway. Someone was coming. Henry ran to the window and looked out. His face went white as a ghost. "They're here," he whispered. "The Chambers family. All three of them. My cousins had found me, and they were coming to claim what they believed was theirs." I watched through the window as three black SUVs pulled up to the mansion. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The doors opened and three people stepped out. The first was the tall man I had seen outside Tanya's house. He was even more intimidating up close. He wore an expensive black suit and walked like he owned the world. This had to be Malcolm. Behind him came a woman with sharp eyes and perfect hair. She was dressed in red from head to toe. Her high heels clicked against the driveway like angry little hammers. This must be Desiree. The third person was younger than the other two. He hung back, looking uncomfortable. He was tall and thin, with glasses and a nervous expression. This was probably Jerome, the youngest. "What do we do?" Tanya whispered, grabbing my arm. Henry stepped forward. "Stay calm. This is your home, Mrs. Thompson. They have no right to be here without your permission." He was right. I took a deep breath and stood up straight. Mama Rose didn't raise me to hide from bullies. "Let's go meet them," I said. We walked to the front door just as Malcolm was about to knock. He seemed surprised to see us. "Well, well, well," he said with a cold smile. "So you're the long-lost cousin who's trying to steal our inheritance." "I'm not stealing anything," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "My grandmother left this estate to me. It's all legal and proper." Desiree pushed past her brother. She looked me up and down like I was something dirty on her shoe. "Legal? Proper?" She laughed. "Aunt Rose was clearly out of her mind when she wrote that will. Everyone knows she should have left everything to us. We're the real Chambers family." "And what am I?" Because it's obvious. "You're nobody," Desiree said. "Just the granddaughter of a woman who ran away from her responsibilities. You don't deserve any of this." The words stung, but I didn't let it show. I remembered what Mama Rose used to say. "Mean words only have power if you let them, Clara. Let them roll off you like water off a duck's back." "The will says otherwise," I said calmly. "Now I'm going to have to ask you to leave my property." Malcolm's face turned red with anger. "Your property? Listen here, little girl. I've been fighting for this estate for 30 years. I'm not going to let some school teacher walk in and take what belongs to me." He took a step toward me. Henry moved to block him. "Mr. Chambers," Henry said firmly, "Mrs. Thompson has asked you to leave. If you don't go, I will have to call the police." Malcolm glared at Henry. "You're still here, old man? I'm surprised my aunt kept you around all these years. When I take over this estate, you'll be the first thing I throw out." "You're not taking over anything," I said. "This estate is mine. The will is clear. If you want to challenge it in court, go ahead. But until then, get off my land." For a long moment, nobody moved. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then Jerome, the youngest cousin, spoke up for the first time. Malcolm, Desiree, maybe we should go. We can handle this through our lawyers. Shut up, Jerome, Desiree snapped. Nobody asked for your opinion. But Malcolm seemed to think about it. He straightened his tie and took a step back. Fine, he said. We'll leave for now, but don't get too comfortable, cousin. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. He turned and walked back to his SUV. Desiree followed, shooting me one last hateful look. Jerome lingered for a moment. I'm sorry about them, he said quietly, so his siblings couldn't hear. They're not always like this. The inheritance has made everyone crazy. Before I could respond, he hurried after his brother and sister. The three SUVs drove away, leaving a cloud of dust behind them. I finally let out the breath I had been holding. That was intense, Tanya said. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said, but my hands were shaking. Henry put a gentle hand on my shoulder. You handled that very well, Mrs. Thompson. Your grandmother would have been proud. We went back inside the mansion. I needed to sit down. My legs felt like jelly. Henry, I said once we were settled in the sitting room, you were about to tell me something before they arrived. Something about my grandmother and a terrible secret. Henry's face grew serious. He sat down across from me and folded his hands. This is not an easy story to tell, he said, and I want you to understand that your grandmother was a good woman. Whatever happened, she spent her whole life trying to make up for it. Please, I said, I need to know the truth. Henry nodded. It all started in 1962. Your grandmother was 18 years old. She was engaged to be married to a young man named Thomas Washington. He was the son of a family that worked on the estate. My grandmother was engaged to someone before, I asked, surprised. Yes, they were very much in love. But her father, your great-grandfather Elijah Chambers, didn't approve. He was a proud man. He believed the Chambers family should only marry into other wealthy families. He forbade the marriage. That's terrible, Tanya said. It was, Henry agreed. But your grandmother was stubborn. She refused to give up Thomas. They made plans to run away together. They were going to elope in the middle of the night. What happened? I asked. Henry's face grew even more serious. The night they planned to run away, something terrible happened. There was an accident, or at least that's what everyone was told. What kind of accident? Thomas was found at the bottom of the old well on the edge of the property. He was dead. I gasped. That's awful. Poor Mama Rose. She must have been heartbroken. She was, Henry said. But here's the thing. Your grandmother never believed it was an accident. She believed Thomas was murdered. The word hung in the air like a dark cloud. Murdered, I whispered. By who? Henry looked down at his hands. Your grandmother believed her own father did it, or had it done. She could never prove it, but she was convinced Elijah Chambers had Thomas killed to prevent the marriage. I felt sick to my stomach. My own great-grandfather? A murderer? That's why she ran away, Henry continued. She couldn't stand to live in this house anymore. She couldn't look at her father without seeing Thomas's face, so she changed her name and started a new life. But she kept the estate, I said. She inherited it when her father died. Yes, she could have sold it. She could have let it go, but she didn't. I asked her once why she held on to it. Do you know what she said? I shook my head. She said, this land holds too many secrets, Henry. If I let it go, those secrets will be buried forever. And Thomas deserves better than that. I thought about the photo I had found in the wooden box, the one with the words, "The truth must never come out," written on it. Do you think my grandmother wanted me to uncover the truth? I asked. I believe so, Henry said. She left you the estate, but she also left you clues. The box in her study, the letters, the key. I think she wanted you to find out what really happened to Thomas Washington. But that was over 60 years ago, Tanya said. How would Clara even begin to investigate something like that? The answers are here, Henry said, in this house, In the old records and documents. Your grandmother kept everything. She was building a case piece by piece, but she ran out of time before she could put it all together. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the beautiful gardens. It was hard to believe that something so dark could have happened in such a beautiful place. There's something else, Bracer and Henry said. Your cousins, Malcolm and Desiree, they know about the rumors. They've been trying to bury this secret for years. If the truth comes out about Thomas Washington, it could destroy the Chambers' family name. That's part of why they want the estate so badly. They want to control the narrative. What about Jerome? I asked. He seemed different from the other two. Jerome is the black sheep of the family, Henry said. He never wanted to be part of their schemes, but he's weak. He goes along with whatever Malcolm and Desiree tell him to do. I thought about the young man with the nervous expression. He had apologized to me. Maybe there was some good in him after all. Henry, where is this old well? The one where Thomas was found? It's on the north side of the property, near the edge of the woods. It's been covered up for years. Your grandmother ordered it sealed after Thomas's death. I want to see it, I said. Tanya grabbed my hand. Clara, are you sure? It's getting dark. Maybe we should wait until morning. I need to see it, I said. I need to understand what happened here. Henry nodded. I'll take you there, but we should be careful. Your cousins might have people watching the property. We walked through the gardens as the sun continued to set. The flowers looked different in the fading light. Shadows stretched across the ground like reaching fingers. After about 15 minutes, we came to the edge of the woods. There, hidden among the trees, was a circle of old stones. This is it, Henry said. The old well. I walked closer. The well had been filled in with dirt and covered with a heavy stone lid. Weeds grew around it, as if nature was trying to hide what lay beneath. Thomas Washington died here 63 years ago, Henry said quietly. He was only 20 years old. I knelt down and touched the stone lid. It was cold under my fingers. I'm going to find out what happened to you, I whispered. I promise. As I stood up, something caught my eye. There, carved into one of the stones around the well, were two sets of initials, R.C. plus T.W. Rose Chambers and Thomas Washington. My grandmother had loved this man. She had loved him enough to run away from everything she knew. She had loved him enough to spend the rest of her life seeking justice for him. And now it was my turn to finish what she started. We walked back to the mansion in silence. The stars were coming out overhead. In the distance, I could hear the sound of crickets singing their evening song. When we got back inside, I went straight to my grandmother's study. I needed to look through those letters I had found in the wooden box. The first letter was dated February 1962. It was from Thomas to my grandmother. My dearest Rose, it read, every moment away from you feels like an eternity. Your father may not approve of our love, but I know that what we have is real. Meet me at our special place tonight. I have something important to ask you. Forever yours, Thomas. My heart broke reading those words. Thomas had been planning to propose, but he never got the chance. The second letter was different. It was written in my grandmother's handwriting, dated much later in 1985. I have spent 23 years searching for the truth. I know my father was responsible for Thomas's death. I have found a witness who was there that night, but before I could speak to them, they disappeared. I fear someone is covering up what happened, someone who doesn't want the truth to come out. I will not give up. Thomas deserves justice, even if it takes me the rest of my life. I put down the letter. My grandmother had spent decades investigating this murder. She had found a witness, but the witness had disappeared. Who was this witness? And what had happened to them? I looked through the rest of the papers in the box. There were more letters, old photographs, newspaper clippings, and handwritten notes. It would take days to go through everything. Then I found something that made me stop. It was a list of names, 3 names To be exact, the first name was circled in red ink, Henry Marshall, caretaker. I looked up at Henry, who was standing in the doorway. "Henry, why is your name on this list?" His face went pale. "What list? Let me see." I showed him the paper. He took it with trembling hands. "Oh my," he whispered. "I didn't know she kept this." "Henry, what is this list?" He sat down heavily. "These are the names of the people who were on the property the night Thomas died. The potential witnesses." "You were there?" I asked. "You saw what happened?" Henry shook his head. "I was there, yes. I was just a boy of 15 working in the stables. But I didn't see what happened to Thomas. I only heard the commotion afterward." "Who else is on the list?" I looked at the two other names. The second one had been crossed out, with the word deceased written next to it, but the third name made my blood run cold. "Patricia Thompson," I read aloud. "Henry, that's Derek's mother, my mother-in-law." Henry's eyes went wide. "Your husband's mother was here that night?" My mind was spinning. Patricia Thompson had died 5 years ago, but before she died, she had been very close to Derek. She had always treated me kindly, but there was something about her that felt distant, like she was keeping secrets. "This can't be a coincidence," I said. "Derek's mother was a witness to Thomas's death, and Derek ended up married to me, the granddaughter of Rose Chambers." Tanya grabbed my arm. "Clara, are you saying Derek married you on purpose? Because of your connection to this estate?" "I don't know," I said, "but I'm going to find out." Just then, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello?" "Mrs. Thompson." The voice was deep and unfamiliar. "My name is Detective Marcus Brown. I'm investigating a case that I believe involves your family. I need to speak with you as soon as possible. It's about a murder that happened 63 years ago." I nearly dropped the phone. "How did you know about that?" "I can't explain over the phone. Can we meet tomorrow? It's very important. Your life may be in danger." Before I could answer, the line went dead. I stared at my phone. A detective investigating Thomas's murder? After all these years? "What was that about?" Tanya asked. "I'm not sure," I said, "but I think things are about to get a lot more complicated." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in one of the mansion's many bedrooms, staring at the ceiling. My mind was full of questions. Did Derek know about my connection to the Chambers estate before we met? Did he marry me to get close to the inheritance? And if his mother was a witness to Thomas's murder, what did she know? Around midnight, I heard a noise outside my window. I got up and looked out. There was someone in the garden, a figure in dark clothes moving between the flower beds. They were heading toward the old well. I grabbed my robe and ran downstairs. I had to find out who it was. By the time I got outside, the figure had disappeared into the woods. I followed, using the flashlight on my phone to light my way. The woods were dark and scary at night. Branches reached out like skeleton arms. Owls hooted in the distance. I finally reached the old well. The figure was there, kneeling on the ground. They were digging. "Stop!" I shouted. The figure looked up. In the light of my phone, I saw their face. It was Jerome, my youngest cousin. "Please," he said, his voice shaking. "Please, you have to listen to me. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help you." "Help me! Your brother and sister want to destroy me." "I know," Jerome said. He looked like he was about to cry. "But I'm not like them. I never wanted any of this. I just want the truth to come out." "What truth?" Jerome stood up. In his hands, he held an old rusted box. "This," he said, "this was buried here 60 years ago. My father told me about it before he died. He said it contained proof of what really happened to Thomas Washington. Proof that could destroy our family forever." He held out the box to me. "Take it," he said. "Read what's inside, and then you'll understand everything." I took the box with trembling hands. It was heavy and covered in dirt. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. Why are you betraying your own family? Jerome's eyes were full of tears. Because what they did was wrong. What our grandfather did was wrong. Thomas Washington was murdered, and our family has been lying about it for 60 years. I can't live with that anymore. He started to walk away, then stopped. Be careful, Clara, he said. Malcolm and Desiree will do anything to keep this secret buried. Anything. Trust no one. And then he disappeared into the darkness, leaving me alone with the rusted box and more questions than answers. I hurried back to the mansion. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the box. When I got inside, I found Tanya and Henry waiting in the sitting room. They had heard me leave. Clara, what happened? Tanya asked. Where did you go? I set the box on the table. Jerome was at the old well. He was digging up something his father buried there years ago. He said it contains proof of what really happened to Thomas Washington. Henry stared at the box. After all these years, the evidence was right there, buried by the well. Should we open it? Tanya asked. I looked at the box. Whatever was inside could change everything. It could prove that my great-grandfather was a murderer. It could explain why Derek married me. It could put my life in even more danger than it already was. But I had promised my grandmother that I would find the truth, and that's exactly what I was going to do. I reached for the latch on the box, but before I could open it, the lights in the mansion went out. We were plunged into complete darkness. What's happening? Tanya screamed. Henry's voice came from somewhere nearby. Someone has cut the power. And then we heard it. The sound of glass breaking. The sound of footsteps. The sound of someone coming into the house. Someone who didn't want us to open that box. The footsteps were getting closer. Heavy boots on the marble floor. More than one person. Maybe 3 or 4. This way, Henry whispered. There's a secret passage behind the bookcase in the study. He grabbed my hand. I grabbed Tanya's hand. We moved through the darkness as quietly as we could. I clutched the rusted box against my chest. Whatever was inside, I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me. We made it to the study just as flashlight beams appeared in the hallway behind us. The intruders were searching the mansion room by room. Henry pushed on a carved flower on the bookcase. There was a soft click, and a section of the wall swung open. Behind it was a narrow passage lit by small emergency lights. Your grandmother had this installed years ago, Henry explained as we slipped inside. She always said she might need an escape route someday. The passage was dusty and filled with cobwebs. We moved quickly, trying not to make any noise. Behind us, I could hear the intruders entering the study. They're not here, a man's voice said. Search the whole house. They couldn't have gone far. What about the box? Another voice asked. Malcolm said we need to find the box. Malcolm, so my cousin had sent these men. He was willing to break into the mansion and terrorize us just to keep his family's secrets buried. The passage led us through the walls of the mansion, past hidden rooms and forgotten spaces. Finally, we came to a door that opened into a small building at the edge of the property. It looked like an old gardening shed from the outside. We should be safe here for now, Henry said. They won't think to look in the groundskeeper's cottage. I set the box down on an old wooden table. My heart was still racing. We need to call the police, Tanya said, pulling out her phone, but she frowned. No signal, they must be jamming the phones. Malcolm has connections, Henry said grimly. He knows people who can do things like that. I looked at the rusted box. Then we have even more reason to open this now. Whatever is inside, Malcolm is terrified of people seeing it. I took a deep breath and opened the latch. The lid creaked as it swung open. Inside, wrapped in old cloth, were several items. A bundle of letters tied with string, a small leather journal, a pocket watch with the initials TW engraved on the back, and a photograph. I picked up the photograph first. It showed 4 men standing together. One of them was clearly my great-grandfather, Elijah Chambers. He was tall and stern-looking, dressed in an expensive suit. Next to him was a younger man who looked nervous and uncomfortable. "That's my grandfather," Henry said, pointing to one of the other men. "He worked for the Chambers family his whole life." But it was the fourth man in the photo that caught my attention. He was standing slightly apart from the others, and his face was partly in shadow. But there was something familiar about him, something about the shape of his jaw and the way he stood. "Henry, who is this man?" Henry looked closely at the photo. His face went pale. "That's William Chambers, Rose's brother, Malcolm and Desiree's grandfather." I stared at the photo. William Chambers was standing next to my great-grandfather on the night Thomas was murdered. What did he know? What had he done? I picked up the leather journal next. It was old and worn, the pages yellow with age. I opened it to the first entry. "This is Thomas's journal," I said, recognizing the handwriting from his letters to my grandmother. I started reading aloud. "March 15, 1962. I have asked Mr. Chambers for Rose's hand in marriage. He refused. He called me names I will not write here. He said I was not good enough for his daughter. He said if I ever came near her again, he would destroy me, but I will not give up. Rose and I belong together. Nothing he says can change that." I turned to another entry, dated a week later. "March 22, 1962. Something strange is happening. Mr. Chambers' son, William, has been following me. Everywhere I go, he is there. He doesn't say anything. He just watches." I told Rose about it. She is worried. She says her brother has always been strange. She says he does whatever their father tells him to do without question. I will be more careful. The entries continued, documenting Thomas's growing fear. William was always watching, always following, and Elijah Chambers was making more and more threats. Then I reached the final entry. April 3, 1962. Tonight is the night. Rose and I are going to run away together. We will meet at the old well at midnight and then leave this place forever. I have a ring for her. It belonged to my grandmother. I cannot wait to see her face when I give it to her. But I am afraid of... I saw William today and he smiled at me. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a man who knows something terrible is about to happen. I pray I am wrong. I pray tonight will be the beginning of our new life together, not the end of everything. My hands were shaking as I closed the journal. Thomas had known something was wrong. He had sensed the danger, but he had gone to the well anyway because he loved my grandmother that much. "There's more," Tanya said, pointing to the bundle of letters. I untied the string and spread the letters on the table. They were not love letters. They were something else entirely. They were confessions. The first letter was written by Henry's grandfather. "I, Samuel Marshall, do hereby confess my knowledge of the events of April 3, 1962. On that night, I witnessed William Chambers push Thomas Washington into the old well. Thomas was still alive when he fell. I heard him calling for help, but William told me to say nothing. He said if I ever spoke of what I saw, he would have my entire family thrown off the property and blacklisted from every job in the county. I have kept silent all these years, but my conscience will not let me rest. I am writing this confession so that someday the truth will be known. May God forgive me for my cowardice." Henry was crying. My grandfather, he knew the truth all along. He watched Thomas die and said nothing. "He was scared," I said gently. "William threatened his family. He did what he thought he had to do to protect the people he loved." There were two more confessions in the bundle. One was from another worker on the estate who had seen William and Elijah arguing about Thomas earlier that day. He had heard Elijah say, "Handle the problem, William, tonight. Make sure it looks like an accident." The third confession was the most shocking of all. It was from Patricia Thompson, Derek's mother. "I, Patricia Johnson Thompson, do hereby confess my knowledge of the murder of Thomas Washington. I was working as a maid at the Chambers estate in 1962. On the night of April 3rd, I saw William Chambers push Thomas into the well. I ran to get help, but I was stopped by Mr. Elijah Chambers himself. He told me that if I ever spoke of what I saw, he would ruin my life. He gave me money to keep quiet. I took the money and left the estate the next day. I have carried this secret for my entire life. I married a man named Robert Thompson and had a son named Derek. I never told anyone what I witnessed. But the guilt has eaten away at me every day. I am writing this confession because I cannot die with this sin on my soul. Thomas Washington was murdered, and I did nothing to stop it. I read the letter 3 times. Derek's mother had witnessed Thomas's murder. She had taken money from my great-grandfather to keep quiet, and she had never said a word. This explains so much, I said slowly. Patricia must have told Derek about the Chambers estate before she died. She must have told him about the murder and the confession she wrote. You think Derek knew about your connection to the estate before you got married? Tanya asked. I think he might have known everything. He married me on purpose. He wanted to get close to the Chambers fortune. Maybe he even knew about my grandmother's inheritance. It was all starting to make sense. Derek's sudden interest in me when we first met, the way he had pushed for a quick wedding, the way he had slowly taken control of our finances, making me sign papers I didn't understand. He had been planning this for years. But why kick you out now? Tanya asked. If he wanted the Chambers money, why would he throw you away? Because he didn't know I had inherited the estate yet, I said. Mama Rose only left it to me 3 months ago. Derek probably thought the money would go to Malcolm and his family. He was using me for something else, maybe information, maybe access, I don't know. Or maybe, Henry said quietly, he found out about the confession his mother wrote. Maybe he knew that if the truth came out about Thomas's murder, his family would be connected to it. Maybe he's trying to distance himself from you before everything explodes. That made terrible sense. Derek was a businessman. He was always thinking 3 steps ahead. If he knew a scandal was coming, he would do everything he could to protect himself. We need to get this evidence to the police, I said. This proves that William Chambers murdered Thomas Washington. It proves that Elijah Chambers ordered the killing. And it proves that multiple people helped cover it up. But Malcolm's men are still out there, Tanya reminded me. How do we get past them? Before anyone could answer, there was a knock on the door of the cottage. We all froze. The knock came again, gentle, almost apologetic. Mrs. Thompson, a voice called. It's Jerome. Please let me in. Malcolm's men are everywhere. I can help you escape. I looked at Henry and Tanya. Could we trust Jerome? He had given me the box. He had said he wanted the truth to come out. But he was still a Chambers. He was still Malcolm's brother. How do we know this isn't a trap? Tanya whispered. We don't, I admitted, but right now he might be our only chance. I walked to the door and opened it. Jerome was standing there looking terrified. His glasses were crooked and his clothes were dirty, like he had been running through the woods. Thank God you're okay, he said. I saw Malcolm's men break into the mansion. I tried to warn you, but I couldn't get there in time. Why should we trust you? Henry asked. Jerome looked at the floor. Because I'm tired of being a coward. My whole life, I've done whatever Malcolm and Desiree told me to do. I've watched them lie and cheat and hurt people. And I never said anything because I was too scared. He looked up at me. But when I found out about Thomas Washington, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. My grandfather murdered an innocent man. My family has been lying about it for 60 years. That's not something I can live with. I studied his face. He looked sincere. He looked broken. He looked like a man who had finally decided to do the right thing. Okay, I said. We'll trust you. For now. But if you betray us, I promise you will regret it. Jerome nodded. I understand. Now we need to move. Malcolm has called in more men. They're searching the entire property. There's a car waiting for us on the other side of the woods. I can get you out of here. We gathered the evidence from the box and followed Jerome into the night. The woods were dark and full of shadows. Every sound made me jump. We walked for what felt like hours. Finally, we emerged from the trees onto a quiet country road. A black car was parked there, engine running. Get in, Jerome said. I'll drive you somewhere safe. We climbed into the car. Jerome got behind the wheel and started driving. I held the evidence against my chest, my heart pounding. Where are we going? I asked. To a hotel in the city, Jerome said. Malcolm won't think to look for you there. In the morning, we can go to the police and show them everything. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this nightmare was almost over. But something didn't feel right. Jerome was driving too fast. He kept checking the rear-view mirror, and his hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Jerome, I said slowly, where are you really taking us? He didn't answer. Jerome. He let out a long, shaky breath. I'm sorry, Clara. I'm so sorry. Before I could react, the car turned off the main road onto a hidden driveway. At the end of the driveway was a large warehouse, and standing in front of the warehouse were Malcolm and Desiree. Jerome had betrayed us. You promised, I shouted at him. You said you wanted the truth to come out. I do, Jerome said, his voice cracking. But Malcolm threatened to hurt my daughter. She's only 8 years old, Clara. I couldn't let him hurt her. I had no choice. The car stopped. Malcolm's men surrounded us immediately. There was no escape. Malcolm walked up to my window and smiled his cold, cruel smile. Thank you for joining us, cousin, he said. I believe you have something that belongs to me. One of his men opened my door and grabbed the box of evidence from my hands. I tried to fight back, but I was no match for him. You can't do this, I said. People know where we are. The detective who called me, he knows everything. Malcolm laughed. Detective Brown? Oh, I know all about him. He's been investigating Thomas's death for years, trying to be a hero, but he'll never find you. No one will. They pulled us out of the car and dragged us into the warehouse. It was cold and empty with concrete floors and high ceilings. Our footsteps echoed in the darkness. What are you going to do with us? Tanya asked, her voice shaking. Desiree stepped forward. That depends on how cooperative your friend Clara decides to be. She turned to me. Here's what's going to happen, cousin. You're going to sign over the Chambers estate to us. You're going to give up your claim to everything. And in return, we'll let you and your friends live. And if I refuse, Malcolm shrugged, then you'll disappear, just like Thomas Washington, just like everyone who has ever tried to expose our family secrets. I looked at Henry and Tanya. They were scared, but they were also determined. They believed in me. They trusted me. I thought about Mama Rose. She had spent her entire life trying to get justice for Thomas. She had died without seeing her mission completed. Was I going to let her down? No, I wasn't. I'm not signing anything, I said. You can threaten me all you want. You can lock me up in this warehouse forever, but I will never give you that estate. It belongs to me, It belongs to Thomas Washington's memory, and I will die before I let you take it. Malcolm's face twisted with rage. Fine. Have it your way. He nodded to his men. They started to drag us toward a door at the back of the warehouse. But before they could take us through the door, something happened. The front doors of the warehouse burst open. Bright lights flooded the room, and a voice shouted through a megaphone. Police! Nobody move! This is Detective Marcus Brown. You are all under arrest. Malcolm's men started running in every direction, but it was too late. Police officers swarmed into the warehouse, tackling them to the ground. Malcolm tried to escape through a side door, but a police officer caught him. Desiree screamed as she was handcuffed. Detective Brown walked toward us. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a serious expression. Miss Thompson, are you okay? I could barely speak. How did you find us? The detective smiled. Your cousin Jerome called me an hour ago. He told me exactly where Malcolm was planning to take you. He gave us everything we needed. I looked at Jerome. He was sitting on the floor, crying. My daughter, and he said, please, my daughter, she's at Malcolm's house. He has people watching her. Detective Brown put a hand on his shoulder. We've already sent officers to get her. She's safe, Mr. Chambers. You did the right thing. Jerome looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry for the trick in the car. It was the only way to get Malcolm to bring everyone together in one place. The detective and I planned it together. I didn't know what to say. Jerome had risked everything to save us. He had pretended to betray us so that the police could catch Malcolm and Desiree in the act. Thank you, I said finally. Thank you for being brave. Detective Brown helped us out of the warehouse. Police cars surrounded the building. Malcolm and Desiree were being put into the back of separate cars. I'll get you for this, Malcolm shouted at me. This isn't over. That estate is mine. Detective Brown shook his head. It's over, Mr. Chambers. We have the confessions. We have the evidence. Your grandfather murdered Thomas Washington, and your family has been covering it up for 60 years. You're going to prison for a very long time. As I watched Malcolm being driven away, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, but there was still one more thing I needed to do. I needed to deal with Derek. The next morning, I woke up in a hotel room. Tanya was asleep in the bed next to me. Henry was downstairs talking to the police. I picked up my phone and saw a text message from Mr. Patterson, my lawyer. The news about Malcolm and Desiree's arrest is everywhere. Derek has been calling my office all morning. He wants to talk to you. He says it's urgent. I smiled. Derek had finally realized what was happening. He had finally figured out that the woman he threw away like garbage was actually the owner of a $500 million estate. It was time for him to learn exactly how wrong he had been. I got dressed and called Mr. Patterson. Set up a meeting with Derek, I said. Well, tell him I'll see him this afternoon at the mansion. My mansion. Are you sure that's a good idea? Mr. Patterson asked. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, I stood on the steps of the Chambers mansion. The sun was shining. The gardens were beautiful. And for the first time, I felt like I was home. A car pulled up the driveway. Derek got out. He looked terrible. His clothes were wrinkled. His eyes were red like he hadn't slept. He walked toward me with his hands in his pockets. Clara, he said, we need to talk. Yes, we do. He looked up at the mansion. So it's true, all of it. This estate, the money, it all belongs to you. Yes, Derek, it does. He shook his head. I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me? When your grandmother died, why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to see what kind of man you really were. And I found out. Derek's face went pale. Look, Clara, I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you, but we can work this out. We can start over. We can be a team again. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A team? Derek, you kicked me out into the rain. You moved your pregnant mistress into our home. You called me old and boring. You treated me like I was nothing. I was confused, Derek said desperately. Vanessa, she manipulated me. But it's you I love, Clara. It's always been you. I walked down the steps until I was standing right in front of him. Let me tell you something, Derek. I know about your mother. I know she was at this estate the night Thomas Washington was murdered. I know she took money to keep quiet, and I know you knew about all of it before you ever asked me on a date. Derek's face went white. How do you know that? Because your mother wrote a confession. It was buried in a box by the old well. The police have it now. They're investigating everyone who was involved in the cover-up, and that includes your family. Derek took a step back. Clara, please, you have to understand, I didn't know my mother was involved in a murder. I just knew there was some kind of secret about this estate. I thought if I married you, I might find out more. So you admit it. You married me because of the Chambers estate. No, I mean, yes, at first, but then I fell in love with you. I really did. And yet you threw me away the moment you thought you didn't need me anymore. Derek had nothing to say to that. I straightened my shoulders. Here's what's going to happen, Derek. You're going to sign the divorce papers. You're going to leave quietly, and you're going to give back the house you've been living in because it sits on my land. Land you've been illegally occupying for years. You can't do this, Derek said. That house is everything I have. Maybe you should have thought about that before you cheated on me. I turned and started walking back up the stairs. Clara, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? I looked over my shoulder at the man who had broken my heart. The man who had used me and lied to me and made me feel like I was worthless. That's not my problem, Derek. And then I walked into my mansion and closed the door behind me. I stood in the grand entrance hall of my mansion and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 15 years. Through the window, I could see Derek still standing in the driveway. He looked lost and confused, like a child who had dropped his ice cream cone. Finally, he got back in his car and drove away. Tanya came running down the stairs. Girl, I saw the whole thing from the window. You were amazing. I smiled, but I felt tired and relieved all at the same time. It's really over, isn't it? I said. Almost, Tanya replied. There's still one more thing you need to do. She was right. I still hadn't read Mama Rose's letter. The one she had left for me in the safe. The one I had been too afraid to open. I walked up to my grandmother's study. The room was filled with afternoon sunlight. Dust particles floated in the golden beams like tiny stars. I sat down at her desk and picked up the envelope with my name on it. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside was a letter written in Mama Rose's beautiful handwriting. My dearest Clara, it began. If you are reading this letter, then I have passed on to the next world. I am sorry I could not tell you these things while I was alive. I was afraid of what the truth might do to you, afraid of putting you in danger. But now that I am gone, you deserve to know everything. I was born Rose Eleanor Chambers, the daughter of one of the wealthiest black families in the South. I had everything a young woman could want: beautiful clothes, a grand home, servants to attend to my every need. But I was not happy. My father was a cruel man who cared more about money and power than about people. When I was 18 years old, I fell in love with a young man named Thomas Washington. He worked on our estate. He was kind and gentle and made me laugh like no one else could. My father forbade the relationship. He said Thomas was beneath our family. But I didn't care. I loved Thomas with all my heart. We made plans to run away together. We were going to elope, start a new life far away from my father's control. But on the night we planned to leave, Thomas was murdered. My own brother William pushed him into the old well and left him to die. I witnessed the whole thing. I had arrived at the well early, hiding in the trees to surprise Thomas. I saw my brother approach him. I heard them argue, and then I watched in horror as William pushed Thomas backward into the darkness. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run to save him, but my father appeared out of the shadows. He had been watching the whole time. He grabbed me and covered my mouth. He told me that if I ever spoke of what I saw, he would have me committed to an asylum. He said no one would believe me. He said Thomas's death would be ruled an accident and that I would keep quiet if I knew what was good for me. I was young and scared. I did what he said, but the very next day I ran away from home. I changed my name and started a new life. I could not stay in that house of horrors for one more minute. I spent the next 60 years trying to find justice for Thomas. I gathered evidence. I collected confessions from witnesses who were willing to talk. I kept the estate so that one day the truth could come out. But I was never brave enough to expose the truth myself. I was too afraid of what my family would do, too afraid of the powerful people who wanted to keep the secret buried. That is why I am leaving everything to you, Clara. Not just the money and the estate, but the mission. You are the bravest person I have ever known. You have a good heart and a strong spirit. I believe that you can do what I could not. I believe that you can finally bring justice to Thomas Washington. There is one more thing you need to know. The key in the wooden box opens a safe deposit box at the First National Bank in Atlanta. Inside that box is more evidence. Evidence that will prove beyond any doubt that my father ordered Thomas's murder and that my brother carried it out. Use this evidence wisely, my darling. Be careful who you trust. And always remember that kindness is more powerful than cruelty. Love is stronger than hate. And the truth, no matter how long it is buried, will always find a way to come to light. I love you, Clara. I have loved you since the moment I first held you in my arms. You were the greatest gift of my life. Thank you for being my granddaughter. Thank you for being my hope. Forever yours, Mama Rose. I set down the letter and let the tears fall freely. Mama Rose had carried this burden for 60 years. She had lived with the guilt and the grief and the fear every single day, and she had never stopped trying to make things right. I won't let you down, Mama Rose. I whispered. I promise. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Detective Brown worked with Mr. Patterson to build a case against the Chambers family. The evidence from the safe deposit box in Atlanta was exactly what we needed. It included letters from Elijah Chambers himself, admitting that he had ordered his son to deal with the Thomas problem permanently. Malcolm and Desiree were charged with kidnapping, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Their trial made national news. For the first time, the world learned the truth about what had happened to Thomas Washington 63 years ago. Jerome testified against his siblings. He told the court everything he knew about their plans to steal the estate and cover up the family's crimes. In exchange for his cooperation, the prosecutor agreed not to charge him. He moved away with his daughter to start a new life somewhere quiet. Derek's involvement was also exposed. His mother's confession proved that the Thompson family had been part of the cover-up for decades. Derek's business partners distanced themselves from him. His company lost major contracts. Within months, he was bankrupt. Vanessa left him, of course. She had only been interested in his money. When the money disappeared, so did she. I could have felt satisfied watching Derek's life fall apart. I could have enjoyed his suffering the way he had enjoyed mine. But I didn't. I just felt sad for him. Sad that he had wasted his life chasing money and power instead of love and kindness. One day, about 3 months after everything happened, Derek came to see me at the mansion. He looked like a different person. His expensive suits were gone. His arrogant smile was gone. He looked small and broken. Clara, he said, I came to apologize. I invited him into the sitting room. Henry brought us tea. I've had a lot of time to think, Derek said, staring at his hands, about everything I did, everything I said, the way I treated you. I waited for him to continue. I was so focused on being successful that I forgot what really matters. I forgot about love. I forgot about kindness. I forgot about you. He looked up at me with tears in his eyes. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, Clara, and I threw you away like you were nothing. I will never forgive myself for that. I took a deep breath. This moment had been a long time coming. Derek, what you did to me was wrong. You hurt me in ways I'm still healing from. You made me feel worthless and unloved. You betrayed our marriage vows in our 15 years together. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. But, I continued, holding on to anger and hatred won't help me move forward. Mama Rose taught me that kindness is more powerful than cruelty. She taught me that forgiveness is not about letting someone off the hook. It's about setting yourself free. I reached out and took his hand. I forgive you, Derek, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Derek broke down crying. He apologized over and over again. He thanked me for my grace and my kindness, and then he left. I never saw him again. The summer after Thomas's murder was finally exposed, I held a memorial service at the old well. We had dug up Thomas's remains and given him a proper burial in the beautiful cemetery on the estate grounds. Hundreds of people came to pay their respects. Thomas's family, who had never known what really happened to their ancestor, were there. They thanked me for bringing the truth to light. Detective Brown spoke about his years of investigating the case. He had always believed that Thomas had been murdered, but he could never prove it until I came along. Henry talked about his grandfather, Samuel, and the guilt he had carried to his grave. He asked for forgiveness on his grandfather's behalf, and then it was my turn to speak. I stood in front of the gathering, looking out at the faces of people who had come to honor a young man who died 63 years ago simply because he dared to love someone. Thomas Washington was a good man, I said. He was kind and gentle and brave. He loved my grandmother with all his heart. And he was murdered because my family could not accept that love. For 60 years, this crime was hidden. The truth was buried just like Thomas was buried in that dark well. But the truth has a way of coming to light. No matter how deep you bury it, it will always find its way to the surface. My grandmother spent her whole life trying to get justice for Thomas. She never stopped fighting. She never stopped hoping. And in the end, she trusted me to finish what she started. Today, we are here to say that Thomas Washington's life mattered. His love mattered. His death will not be forgotten. But I also want to say something else, something that my grandmother taught me. Hatred and revenge might feel good in the moment, but they will poison your soul. Kindness and forgiveness are harder, but they will set you free. The men who killed Thomas are gone now. They died with their sins heavy on their hearts. Their children and grandchildren are paying the price for their crimes. The cycle of pain and suffering could continue forever. Or it could stop, right here, right now, with us. I choose to let it stop. I choose to honor Thomas not with hatred, but with love. Not with revenge, but with healing. Not with darkness, but with light. Rest in peace, Thomas Washington. You are finally free, and so are we. The crowd was silent for a long moment. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Soon everyone was applauding. After the service, a young woman approached me. She had tears in her eyes and a gentle smile on her face. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, "my name is Grace Washington. Thomas was my great-great-uncle. I just wanted to thank you. My family has wondered what happened to him for generations. Now we finally know." I hugged her tight. "I'm so sorry for what my family did to yours." "You didn't do it," Grace said, "and you're the one who made it right. That takes more courage than anything." I looked at her and saw Thomas's kind eyes looking back at me. The same eyes my grandmother had fallen in love with all those years ago. "Would you like to come to the mansion for dinner?" I asked. "I would love to hear more about Thomas and your family." Grace smiled. "I would like that very much." That dinner was the first of many. Grace and I became close friends. She told me stories about Thomas that his family had passed down through the generations. He had loved music and poetry. He had wanted to be a teacher someday. He had dreamed of having a big family and growing old with the woman he loved. Thanks to Grace, Thomas became more than just a name in a story. He became a real person, someone I could picture laughing and singing and holding my grandmother's hand. A year after the memorial service, I made a big decision. I decided to turn the Chambers estate into a foundation. The Rose and Thomas Foundation would provide scholarships for young people who couldn't afford college. It would fund programs for families in need. It would support artists and musicians and dreamers who just needed a chance. The mansion itself became a museum and community center. People could come and learn about the history of the estate, including the dark parts. The old well was turned into a memorial garden with a beautiful statue of Thomas and Rose holding hands. Tanya became the director of the foundation. She had always wanted to help people, and now she had the resources to do it. She threw herself into the work with passion and joy. Henry stayed on as the caretaker, just as he had always been. He tended the gardens and maintained the grounds. But now he also gave tours and told visitors about the history of the place. As for me, I went back to teaching. I had missed working with children. I had missed the joy of watching young minds grow and learn. The money from the estate meant I could teach without worrying about paying my bills. I could focus on what I loved most. I also started writing. I wrote down everything that had happened, from the moment Derek kicked me out to the moment I stood at Thomas's memorial service. I wanted people to know the story. I wanted them to understand that the truth always finds a way to come to light, no matter how long it takes. One evening, about 2 years after everything happened, I was sitting in the memorial garden watching the sunset. The sky was painted in beautiful shades of pink and orange and gold. I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Tanya. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, sitting down beside me. "Everything," I said. "How much has changed, how different my life is now. Do you ever regret it? Uncovering the truth? Going through all that pain?" I thought about her question. I thought about the fear and the danger and the heartbreak. I thought about losing Derek and finding myself. I thought about Mama Rose and Thomas and all the secrets that had been buried for so long. "No," I said finally, "I don't regret any of it. If I hadn't gone through all that pain, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have found my purpose. I wouldn't have learned what really matters in life." "And what's that?" Tanya asked. I smiled. "Love, kindness, truth, family. Not the family you're born into, but the family you choose. The people who stand by you when everything falls apart." Tanya took my hand and squeezed it tight. "I'm glad I'm part of your chosen family." "So am I." We sat together in silence, watching the sun sink below the horizon. The stars began to appear, one by one, twinkling like tiny promises in the darkening sky. I thought about Mama Rose and everything she had taught me. I thought about Thomas and the love that had been stolen from him. I thought about all the people whose lives had been touched by this story. And I realized something. The pain I had gone through was not pointless. It was the fire that forged me into who I was meant to be. Every tear I cried, every heartbreak I survived, every moment of fear and doubt, it had all led me here, to this garden, to this moment, to this life. Derek had thought he was punishing me when he kicked me out of our home. He had thought he was destroying me. But instead, he had set me free, free to discover the truth about my family, free to find my purpose, free to become the person my grandmother always knew I could be. And the house he had been so proud of, the house he had moved his mistress into, the house he thought was his greatest achievement, it turned out to be built on land that belonged to me all along. Funny how life works out sometimes. I pulled Mama Rose's letter out of my pocket. I had kept it with me every day since I first read it. The paper was worn and soft from being handled so much. "Kindness is more powerful than cruelty," I read aloud. "Love is stronger than hate, and the truth of our Mistress, no matter how long it is buried, will always find a way to come to light." I folded the letter and pressed it against my heart. "Thank you, Mama Rose," I whispered. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for giving me this mission. Thank you for teaching me how to love." A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the garden. It felt like a kiss from heaven. I stood up and looked at the statue of Thomas and Rose. They were frozen in bronze, holding hands forever, the way they should have been in life. "Your story isn't lost anymore," I said to them. "The world knows what happened. The world knows how much you loved each other, And because of that love, so many lives are going to be changed for the better. I turned and walked back toward the mansion. The lights were on inside, warm and welcoming. Through the windows, I could see the staff preparing for tomorrow's community event. This was my home now, my purpose, my legacy. I had started this journey as a woman who had lost everything, a woman who had been thrown away like garbage by the man she loved, a woman who thought her life was over. But it turned out my life was just beginning. And as I walked through the doors of my mansion, I made one final promise to myself. I would spend the rest of my days living the way Mama Rose had taught me, with kindness, with love, with courage, with truth. Because in the end, those are the only things that really matter. Those are the only things that last. And those are the things that can turn even the darkest tragedy into the most beautiful triumph. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another inspiring story. Drop a comment below and let me know what lesson you took from Clara's journey. Was it about forgiveness, about courage, about never giving up on the truth? I would love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, remember that no matter how dark things seem, the light is always waiting for you. You just have to be brave enough to find it. God bless you all.